everyone, and welcome to another lesson. Hello, Anthony, as well.
Hey, how's it
Good to have
going?
you back.
Great to be back.
Right. Now, my microphone. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, let's take two. Welcome back, and good evening or good day to everyone. We hope you're having a great time. And this is our continuing with the lessons. Today we're on lesson 21, I do believe.
Lesson 21 it is, restriction and screen.
Restriction and screen. As you know, before, in the previous lesson, we started the technical lessons, and I did note that this is now a second semester, so we're kind of phasing now towards a more technical side of the wisdom of Kabbalah. We've done the foundations, we put the stepping stones forward and laid them out. Now we have to build some depth into it. And this is how it's going to work out. Now, in case you didn't know, we had a nice introductory to the Wisdom of Kabbalah lesson on Saturday. And apparently there's some questions unanswered.
Definitely. We've got some questions unanswered, so we cannot leave any stones unturned.
So let's get those done first.
So here we go. Question number 1. What do you think is necessary for the whole of humanity to wake up? And this is from Akihiro.
Okay. Well, I think what we have to do is we have to take responsibility for our development and to help others as much as possible. Any student of Kabbalah who's advancing with us, after a while understands that advancing is actually by helping others. So the more we study, the more we get into the wisdom of Kabbalah, we understand that first of all we have to correct ourselves. Because if a person has to start somewhere, and we start with ourselves, try to correct ourselves, and our whole attitude actually in the wisdom of Kabbalah is to correct ourselves, is to improve ourselves, and we don't really like to dictate to other people what they should do and how they should behave and act. We don't do that in the wisdom of Kabbalah. Kabbalah is a science that is purely focused on the student trying to change his or her perception of reality so that he or she can come to see the truth by building this new vessel, which is called a soul, or the 10 Sephirot, or the sixth sense, call it whatever you like. So a person has to correct himself or herself, and if he or she can, helping others to do the same would be great, and this is why we work in a group to help each other out.
Definitely. So our next question is it correct to say that the point in the heart is the same thing as a person's latent abilities or hidden potentials, or is it something completely different? And this is from Ando.
Okay, the dot in the heart is a part of the Creator, which is inside of us. So it doesn't really have anything to do with our corporeal talents or competencies. The dot in the heart is an inclination towards the attribute of bestowal, because that's what the Creator is. The Creator is the attribute of bestowal. And in order for the human, the person, to get to that level, he needs to have a starting point. And that starting point for spirituality is the dot in the heart, when he first wants to discover why he's living, what's the meaning of life, and why we exist, and all these questions pop up inside of us, and that's actually the trigger. So the dot in the heart is our potential for spirituality, but it doesn't have anything to do with our corporeal traits.
Okay, last question. I heard that the word Kabbalah means reception. Does it mean that studying Kabbalah is actually get to know your own desire to receive? And can we also say that each person has his own original answer to the question?
Well, the wisdom of Kabbalah is actually a science about us in reality. So any person who studies the wisdom of Kabbalah learns about him or herself in this reality. And we are a desire to receive, as we studied in the first semester and as we talked in previous lessons, that our nature is a desire to receive pleasure. We're a pleasure machine, basically. And this machine will always work to get pleasure right now. When can I get the pleasure? Immediately. That's how our nature works. So this nature within itself needs to be recognized, because once we get to know it, we begin to understand how much harm it does. So the wisdom of Kabbalah is actually teaching us that we are a desire to receive pleasure, and this is causing us harm. However, though, because we're created as a desire to receive, this is not going to change. We're always going to be a desire to receive. However, we're going to change the way we use our desire to receive, and instead of using it in a corrupt way, which is now the way this is the whole of humanity is using it, we're using it really egoistically. What we're going to learn with the wisdom of Kabbalah is how to use it in a bestowing way, so that all my desires can be used in order to bestow to others without harming anything in reality. And there was a second part to that question, wasn't there? And can we also say that each person has his own original answer to this question? Well, yeah, absolutely, because Kabbalah is a self-discovery. So all of us will need to discover, okay, ourselves. And this is why it's also called a hidden wisdom, because everything about the individual is revealed to that person, and nobody else from the outside can see what's revealed in another person. So that's quite correct. Okay, so today we're going to start with restriction and the screen. Now this lesson is a continuation of last week's lesson. Let's do a little recap so we have a summary of what's going on. Now last lesson, in fact, let's start with way before. We all learned from our previous lessons that we are a desire to receive pleasure. Okay, this is what we are. The Creator created a desire to receive pleasure, and that's what we are. And we said that this is called a kli. It's a vessel. And this is the filling, or we could say the pleasure. And the Creator wants to fulfill this desire to receive, which is the created being, with pleasure. So in creation, actually, we just have the Creator. Okay, so this is the Creator. And this is the creature. I could say this is the creature. Okay, that's what we have. And of course, the connection between them is the filling or the pleasure. This is why we always want to have pleasure. We are a desire to receive pleasure. And that's all. That's the whole of reality. There is the Creator who created a desire to receive pleasure. So there's the Creator and there is us, desires to receive pleasure. That's all. That is the light and the vessel. Now in the previous lesson, we discussed how the Creator created all that. So from the beginning of creation, the Creator created the desire to receive from nothing. This is why it's from a dot. Also, that's why we have a dot in the heart. Existence from absence. So He created a desire to receive. He filled it with pleasure. This is the root phase. This is the first phase. And then developed it through the 4 phases of direct light. It was a desire to receive pleasure, which is chokhmah. Then the second phase was the desire to bestow, as the Creator put pleasure and also His own trait into the vessel. This is Bina. Bina was born. And from Bina, as we learned in the previous lessons, Zerampin was born, which was, we can receive a little bit from the Creator in order to bestow contentment. And that was also known as Tiferet or Zerampin. Tiferet or Zerampin. Okay? And then we learned that the 4th phase was the real created creature, which was the desire to receive all of what the Creator has, plus to be like the Creator. Okay, so if you recall the previous lesson, we went over this in detail, and I'm just doing a recap. Now, because the reason I'm doing a recap is simply because now we're going to continue from this onwards, all right? So we're created as a desire to receive pleasure, and this is how we're created, and there's only the Creator and the created being, and that's it. And this is how the Creator developed the desire to receive in 4 phases. And this whole process is called the 4 phases of direct light, like we learned in the previous lesson. So today, what is the restriction and the screen that needs to happen after these 4 phases? And in order to continue, let's do this. let me just get rid of this part so I can continue in the same direction. Okay. There we go. Actually, I'm just going to move this here a little bit. Okay. Okay, good. So let's read a little bit first and continue the restriction and the screen lesson. Okay. Now, we're going to read from Baal HaSulam, and it's from the article Preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah. It's on page 569. It's item 13. Now, you might not have this book, but you can find it in a PDF format on the website kabbalah.info. If you're interested in getting the book, then you can get it from kabbalahbooks.info, and you can order it and then just send it to you by post. So let's see what he's telling us here. The thing is that as corporeal objects are separated from one another by remoteness of location, spirituals are separated from each other by the disparity of form between them. This can be found in our world too. For example, when two people share similar views, they like each other, and the remoteness of location does not cause them to draw far from one another. Conversely, when their views are far, they are hateful of each other, and proximity of location will not bring them any closer. Thus, the disparity of form in their views removes them from each other, and the proximity of form in their views brings them closer to each other. If, for example, one's nature is the complete opposite of another's, they are as far from one another as the east from the west. So, what is Baal HaSulam trying to explain to us here? Why does he give us this example? Now, in corporeality, we can divide things by cutting them up, okay? Yeah, by separating them, by breaking them, and so on. In spirituality, it doesn't quite work that way, but the principle is the same. And this equivalence of form actually is very, very important. And we touched on this topic in our previous lessons, that the only way to get to feel the Creator, to get to sense the Creator, is by actually drawing closer to his qualities. Because in spirituality, according to this explanation here, the qualities draw things closer. So if two people like the same things, they're close to each other. If their opinions, their views, they're close to each other, they're similar to each other, or they're exactly the same, they're very close to each other. That's what proximity is measured by in spirituality, and that is called the equivalence of form. And the only way to feel anything actually and to sense anything in reality is to have equivalence of form with a certain item. Same thing is for how we see, how we hear, everything. We can't hear certain frequencies, but we can hear a certain limit of frequencies because that's how our eardrums are attuned to it. Same with the things we see. We can see certain things and we can't see certain things because our vision has equivalence of form with certain things and doesn't have equivalence of form with some other things. And in spirituality, this is called the similarity of attributes or traits. So in spirituality, this is what happened in the four phases of direct light. When the Creator created us in the initial state, maybe I can draw something here. Let's just bear with me. I'll just bring this here. So the Creator created us first as one. Okay, if we draw this as one like this, and we were completely in, oops, let's make this yellow so it fits the light. And we were completely unified with the Creator. He was bestowing and we were receiving everything in a pure way. We weren't fully conscious of it, but we weren't egoistic, that's for sure. Now, as he began to develop us, what happened is we began to draw further away from each other. So before we were as one, now we only have a little bit of equivalence of form. So we sense each other a little bit. And then we draw further from each other again. Actually, let me do this a little better. It's not quite right. Let's see if maybe I can do it from here. Nope. Oh. Okay, we'll just have to consider it. No, that's not going to happen. Okay, let's just say this is even less. Okay, this is less until we get here where we're completely detached from the creator. Okay, so here we were as one with the creator. Here we were a bit more tight. Okay, let's make this a bit wider. Okay, so we had more in common with the creator than the third phase. Okay, and here we had less in common with the creator until here we're completely separate from the creator. So that's the creator and that is us. Okay, so the white is the creator and the red is the desire to receive. Why? Because it wants everything. It wants everything that the creator has, plus it wants to be like the creator. So it's completely opposite to the creator, because the creator is complete bestowal, just wants to give, and here the desire to receive wants to just receive everything. So here we're just completely separated from the creator. And this actually needs to happen, simply because if it didn't happen, we wouldn't have any chance of building our conscious development from complete detachment to unity once again in our own free choice. So this is very important. Let's see what else Bala Islam says here for us. Okay, so basically when we draw this, we also need to probably say here that this remoteness means the difference, okay, oops, let's do this, okay, bestowal, and here we've got reception. So we are that far from the creator, okay? Complete opposites to our root by the time we get here. But just remember, this is very important to understand, that this remoteness means we are separated in our attitude towards each other. His attitude is complete love and bestowal towards us. Our attitude now in this fourth phase is complete reception for ourselves. So we're completely opposite to the creator, and that's what being detached is from the creator. Okay, so it's not a matter of distance, it's not a matter of all kinds of spaces or whatever. We're just different because our traits are opposite to the creator, and that's why we don't have equivalence of form, and that's why we cannot sense the creator. If we could be in bestowal, we could sense the creator everywhere, but because we're not in that form, in that bestowing form, then we cannot sense the creator. So it's a matter of qualities being equal to each other, and that's how proximity is measured in spirituality, not by distance but by traits. So let's see what else is here for us. Okay. Similarly, all matters of nearness and remoteness, coupling and unity that unfold in spirituality are but measures of disparity of form. They depart from one another according to their measure of disparity of form, and become attached to one another according to their measure of equivalence of form. So as you can see here, this is what I try to demonstrate here. We're completely one with the creator here in this initial phase of creation, and this is the state that the creator wants us to be in, actually, where we receive everything from the creator. However, here we're like a little baby. We're just not conscious. We're in the arms of our mum. we're being fed, looked after, and everything is great, but we're not really conscious of what's going on. Just like a baby is born in this world, they don't really understand what's going on in the world. All they care about right now is being fed, kept warm, safe in their mother's arms, and that's all. But as we grow up, what happens? We get separated, don't we? We become more distant, we become more individualistic, we become more, egoistic, we become more for ourselves. And that's like separating ourselves from our mothers, parents, siblings, everything. And this is a natural course. It has to happen. Just like in life it happens, this is also how we were created, and this is how it's taking form in spirituality, so that the created being can find a place to really build him or herself as a spiritual entity independently. So as the Creator is actually creating us and giving us this opposite form with respect to his form, then what we're actually finding is the ability to start from scratch to build a form just like the Creator, which is actually how we will attain our also independence in that development. Otherwise, if he had already given us that trait and we were already connected with him, we wouldn't really have any freedom of choice. We'd just understand that we're already half in it and we'll just complete it. So by being fully detached from the Creator, by becoming complete opposite to him in reception, we actually have now the chance to start working in order to develop something from nothing. Just like the Creator developed reality from nothing, we'll be able to develop a spiritual reality from nothing. And that will actually also, if you think about it, will bring us to equivalence of form with the Creator. Because at the end of the day, what would have happened, what will happen, is that a person will create his spiritual reality from scratch, making him just like the Creator created this reality from scratch, from nothing, in fact. Okay, so let's read a little bit more. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them down, and we'll be more than happy, if we can, to answer them. All right, so in the previous lessons we talked about how we were created and how we developed from one phase to the other, and this actually now we can understand that this slowly detached us from the Creator until we are completely, let's do the Creator in black and not get confused, so until we and the Creator are completely opposite as a desire to receive. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to read again, continue to read from that same article, from the preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah, page 569, item 13. Similarly, all matters of nearness and remoteness, coupling and unity that unfold in spirituality are but measures of disparity of form. They depart from one another according to their measure of disparity of form, and become attached to one another according to their measure of equivalence of form. So just like we read a minute ago, what we're saying here is, here the created being and the Creator, let's just do this here, the created being and the Creator are both united. So it's like being in the Garden of Eden. This is a sensation of infinity, no end, that everything is good, and this is unity. Okay, unity with the Creator. The light and the vessel are together. Yet you should understand that although the will to receive is a mandatory law in the creature, as it is essence of the creature and the proper key for reception of the goal of the thought of creation, it nonetheless completely separates itself from the emanator. This is so because there is disparity of form to the point of oppositeness between itself and the emanator. So from the beginning here until here, we become completely opposite in the 4 phases of development. This is so because there is disparity of form to the point of oppositeness between itself and the emanator. This is because the emanator is complete bestowal without a shred of reception, and the creature is complete reception without a shred of bestowal. Thus there is no greater oppositeness of form than that. It therefore follows, that this oppositeness of form necessarily separates it from the creator. So now this whole gap is 100% separation. Okay. If I could just get my writing right. Let's do this. Separation. So we're 100% separated from the creator. We're complete reception. He's complete bestowal. And it's like we have no contact with each other, just like in this state here. And this is the fourth phase. We can really say, like we said in the previous lesson, that the fourth phase is the creature, the real desire to receive everything that the creator has, and his also status quo. So it's completely opposite to the creator. And this is actually what we're beginning to see in this form here, in this article here. So let's move a little bit more forward and see what happens. Now then, what do we have here? The fourth phase of direct light. Now, as you know from previous lessons, that everything that happens is inside a person, right? So everything that happens is felt in us. Life influences us, impacts us, and inside of us we have feelings, sensations, desires, and thoughts. Actually, we live the whole of life in our sensations, in what we're going through, in our feelings, emotions, thoughts, desires, and intentions. So all of this process, the four phases of direct light, and in fact everything from the beginning of creation to its end, all needs to happen in one desire. And we can actually draw it as one vessel. And if we just do one big desire to receive like this, and then we'll top it up. So what do we have here? We have the root phase, we have the first phase, we have the second phase, and we have the third and the fourth phase. Okay, so we have oops, sorry, let's just do this. So we have the root phase, sometimes we say 0, 1, 2, the third and the fourth phase. Now all of these things, the four phases of direct light, are happening inside one person. They're not happening in different vessels. How could that be? The creator is just developing one desire to receive. So our root phase and all the others are in Chokhmah, Bina. Everything is happening in one desire to receive, Tiferet and Malchut. Okay, and this is how it is. Now this state, this state that this created being, call it the desire to receive, has now attained in the fourth phase. It's called Malchut de Ein Sof. It means it's the Malchut of the world of infinity, that it is completely wanting everything. Okay, so Malchut, I'm going to write the technical terms as well, and you should learn it too. Malchut of Ein Sof. Okay, Ein Sof. It means the kingdom of, well, I don't want to call it the kingdom of heaven, make it sound like a Hollywood movie, but what we can say is, we can say the Malchut of infinity. Okay, we'll call it the Malchut of infinity. Where the vessel is completely filled with light, with everything. And that's the fourth phase, and this is how we can actually say it is. Now we have a bit of a problem here. When the created being received everything, wanted to be just like the Creator, and also wanted everything that the Creator has, this resulted in a new sensation. Just like our friend in the beginning of the lesson asked about, discovering our desire to receive, this is actually what happened. Malkut Ein Sof discovered what the desire to receive is and how opposite it is to the Creator. So all of a sudden, Malkut, when he wants to receive everything and gets everything, and also wants to bestow like the Creator, and he's in that sensation, he understands, he feels that he's completely opposite to the Creator, just like we drew here. He comes to the understanding and says, oh my God, we are so apart from each other, we're 100% separated, we're opposite, we've got no connection at all with the Creator. And this creates inside this desire to receive a sensation called shame. Okay? So at the bottom of this, let's call it here, once this whole reception, wanting to receive everything from the Creator and everything he has occurs to its fullest capacity, this new sensation develops inside the created desire to receive, and that is called shame. It means I feel really bad about how I relate to the Creator, because I see how he's relating to me in love and bestowal, and I see how I'm relating as complete egoist, wanting everything for myself. And this disparity of form inside me is giving me the sensation of shame. Now, shame in spirituality, although it has its root here, isn't really the same shame we're talking about in corporeal reality. In fact, it's not the same shame at all. So in spirituality, shame is that I'm really feeling bad about how I've related myself to the Creator after seeing the depth of His love and the depth of my self-love. So the Creator's love is towards me, and my love is also towards me. So what can you do? Imagine being married to a complete egoist and they give you nothing. Okay, so that bad. So this is how the situation here is. So we've come to a situation where the created being feels shame. Now this shame is also known, the fire of hell, okay, because the created being really feels bad about this relationship that they have with the Creator. And because of this bad feeling, it's becoming like intolerable to stay in this situation. And this intolerance brings about this new decision saying, listen, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to receive anything from the Creator. I'm just not going to take anything, because if I take something, I just feel really bad about myself. And I just don't want to go there. So this next state happens where the created being this desire to receive now puts what we call a restriction on the desire to receive. A big fat restriction, which means I am not going to take anything from the Creator ever for myself. Sounds a bit harsh, but that's the feeling the desire to receive has. And this is called restriction. The Creator still wants to bestow. He still wants to bestow to us, because Creator is love and bestowal. That's never going to change. His relationship to us is always love, and the act of love is to bestow. So love is an attribute. The action that's corresponding to it is to bestow. And because the Creator is love and bestowal, even though we don't feel it like that in this world, so put this world aside for the moment, because here we don't feel the Creator. We have nothing to talk about here with respect to the Creator, because we don't feel the Creator. We got nothing to say to Him. If we knew Him and had contact with Him, then there's something to talk about. But until then, let's just look at this framework of events as Kabbalists are describing to us how the Creator created reality. So don't get all personal with how bad your life might be, and you're thinking, how could love and bestowal be the attribute of God when you've got so much problems and when the whole world has so much problems? Put that aside for the moment. We're not there yet. Okay, this is just the development of the desire to receive and the sensations that it's going through. And these sensations are necessary because we're going to use them as we elevate ourselves in spirituality. We're going to use these sensations that the created being went through in order to advance. This is why we have a dot in the heart. And the dot in the heart is very important because everything that the created being went through during the process of creation is in that dot in the heart, and we're going to reveal it. And that revelation is called the revealing of the Reshimot, the impressions of spirituality. And all of those impressions are coming from these phases that we're going through. This desire to receive was going through during its creation. So these things are very important, but they're currently not related to us at all. All right, so don't get all psyched up about it. So what happens is the first restriction. There we go. So if this is the first, obviously there must be a second restriction, but that's down the line. And the first restriction simply means this. The created desire to receive says, I will not receive ever anything from the Creator in order to receive. I will not receive anything for myself from the Creator ever again. So this is actually a law. So the first restriction is a law, which means that I will never receive anything in order to receive, which means egoistically for myself. I will never receive in order to receive. This is a law in reality, and this is why you cannot get pleasure from anything in life. Because the minute, as you know, you fulfill your desire, what happens? They cancel each other out. The desire and the fulfillment cancel each other out. Well, that stems from this. This is why in this world there is no way you can ever have fulfillment. Fulfillment and desire, they just cancel each other out. You can never be happy. It's just transient. It's just momentarily. So you feel happy about something, it's just momentarily. So we have fleeting pleasures in this world. That's it. Nothing more. So let's get rid of this so that we do not get confused. All right? And that is called the first restriction. This is called a masach. Masach means a screen. Screen actually means my ability, my force to resist. That I am controlling my desire to receive. And despite the fact that there are a bunch of pleasures here, I'm not receiving it because, although there are a lot of pleasures, I'm not receiving it because here the suffering from shame is much greater. Suffering from shame is much, much greater than the pleasures here. So the created being is happy to restrict himself. He's saying, you know, we're not going to be in touch with the Creator. I don't want anything. I'm not interested in getting anything. I don't want to feel that shame again. Okay? That's how bad it is. And this is how the fourth phase of direct light all of a sudden develop into this Malchut of infinity, this kingdom of infinity. As you know, Malchut is from the word to rule, which we learned in the previous lesson. And Malchut of infinity is the desire to rule, to receive, to have everything in the world of infinity, in the world of the Creator, in the Creator's reality. So now, having gone through that, the created being says, no, I will not receive anything, because being the opposite of Creator is really disgusting. So he doesn't want to feel this desire to receive, doesn't want to feel this disgusting, horrible state. And that's why he does, the desire to receive does the first restriction, and he places a screen on the desires. Now note again, I need to make this clear, we will always be a desire to receive pleasure. This is never going to change. The Creator is always bestowing, and we are always receiving. That's the Creator, and that's us. This is how it needs to be. We just have to change our relationship, our attitude to the Creator. In this relationship of giving and taking, we just arrange how we relate to the Creator. Our intention is the only thing we need to change. This is why sometimes the screen is known as the intention. So the desire to receive stays the same desire to receive, because remember, the Creator wants to fulfill that desire to receive, right? He wants to fulfill it. Great, okay? And the desire to receive wants to be fulfilled. But we have to attune ourselves and arrange our relationship towards the Creator in a more acceptable fashion. And that fashion must be in order to bestow to the Creator. It's just like He is bestowing, we want to bestow back to the Creator. And that's how it should be. So the created being is actually putting a restriction, a big screen on his desire to receive, and saying, I'm not going to receive anything for the moment. And after that, there are further developments. However, this lesson is up to here. All right. So all we have to do is to know in this lesson, is that after the fourth phase, the created being feels really bad, feels shame because of this disparity of form with the Creator, sees how loving the Creator is, how giving He is, and the desire to receive sees the truth about himself and says, wow, I'm such a disgusting person. I receive everything, I take everything, and this is my nature. That's like, wow, really bad, because this is how I am. Okay? So in order not to feel bad, does the first restriction and puts a screen on the desire to receive, saying, I will not receive anything in order to receive. And that becomes a law. It becomes a law for the created being. This law will never, ever be broken. So it's very important to understand. Okay? Okay. Let's read a little bit more in order to tighten this definition up a little bit. So to save the creatures from this titanic separation, the Tzimtzum Aleph, the first restriction, so the first restriction also known in Hebrew, let's write the Hebrew term as well so you understand the technical terms as well. Okay, it's always good to know the technical terms, just like in medicine, they sometimes use Latin names for certain things. Same here as well. We're studying a science, so it does have technical names and it's good to know. So the first restriction is tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means restriction. Aleph. Aleph means 1 or the letter A. So tzimtzum Aleph, restriction 1, or the first restriction. Okay. It essentially separated Bechina Dalet from the rest of the Partzufim of holiness in such a way that great measure of reception remained an empty void, a space devoid of light. So this place is completely, empty now. There's no light in this place at all now. Completely separated from the Creator. Has no sensation of the Creator whatsoever, just completely rejecting anything that the Creator wants to give. Completely empty, void from the light. Okay, so I do believe we have a question.
Yes, we have a question from Lawrence Dunn. Question is, do we bestow to the Creator best by bestowing to creation, the fragmented beings of creation?
Well, that's a starting point. Okay, that's a starting point. In this framework of the lesson, we're not there yet. That's much further down the line. In the framework of this lesson, this is just the creation of the desire to receive. We're going to be bestowing in our intention, because just like I described here a second ago, we are a desire to receive, and this will always be a desire to receive. This is not going to change. Okay? How we use this desire to receive will determine if we are coming closer to equivalence of form with the Creator or not. And if we get it right, we should be able to use our desire to receive in order to bestow to the Creator and to reach the happy ending. Okay. Now, how we get there, because you're more talking about the realization of how to bestow back to the Creator, that is down the line. But if you want a short answer to it, yes, by bestowing to others in a correct way, mind you, okay, you can kind of bestow to the Creator. So we have to learn how to bestow first, and then we'll learn how to bestow to the Creator. So first, bestowing to the creatures. But in order to come to bestow to the Creator, we must understand that the purpose of creation is to bestow to the Creator. It is not to bestow to other people. Other people along the way is a leverage. It's a training ground, call it. It's like going to school. So I learn how to bestow among others, but the purpose of life is to bestow to the Creator, and we must never forget that. Because a lot of people think that the objective of life when studying spirituality or the wisdom of Kabbalah might be morals or ethics and about how we need to be treating each other here. But the wisdom of Kabbalah really is not that. The wisdom of Kabbalah is to discover the Creator here, to have a relationship with the Creator, and to get that relationship right in an equal way. This is why equivalence of form is very important for us. We have to equalize the way we approach each other. That's what it means. That the way the Creator relates to me and the way I relate to Him are equal. Otherwise, in reality, we'd always be less than the Creator. And that would make us like, being a pet dog to somebody. Okay, so imagine if you have a pet in the house, you're the human and that's the pet. Now, if we didn't get this relationship in equal terms right with the Creator, if He was always bestowing and giving to us, we'd be like His pet. And that's not what reality is all about. That's not what creation's all about. The purpose of creation is to create a created being that can become like the Creator. So the Creator and the created being can have that reciprocal relationship. And that's the whole idea. So in between bestowing to other people, yes, it's a part of the, let's say part of the training, but it's not the purpose of the study. So that's a good question there. Are we good with that? Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So this feeling of shame is the trigger. And we need to understand that. We need to make a note of that. Because this feeling of shame after receiving everything from the Creator is now bringing the created being to have a new discernment. And that new discernment is not to receive anything ever for myself again. And that becomes a law in spirituality. Oops. We just need to go one more that way. Okay. So I hope that's understood so far. If there's anything not really clear, you can always also send us an email when you're watching this lesson afterwards if you're not watching it live, and we'll try to answer the best we can. It's important, though, to kind of follow this lesson in connection with last week's lesson. So it's very important not to miss a lesson and to just keep going from one lesson to the next, because all the lessons now especially are like links in a chain. So one without the other is just not going to really sink in at all. Even for this to sink in, I think you might need to listen to it, a few times as well. All right. So if we don't have any questions, let's read a little bit more to understand how we can set our relationship with the Creator correctly. Okay, so because of this restriction now, there's no light, okay? So here, this place is darkness. Darkness. Darkness means I have no pleasure, nothing. And all the light is now on the outside. Oops, let's make this yellow. So all the light is now up here, and in the vessel there's no light at all. Complete darkness. It's all empty. No light can ever get in here. Okay. Let's see what's that all about. So Baal Islam explains this to us in an allegory called The Guest and the Host, so that we can get our heads around this relationship. So let's read a little bit more. I shall explain that with an allegory from life. Man's nature is to cherish and favor the quality of bestowal, and to despise and loathe reception from one's friend. Hence, when one comes to one's friend, and he, the host, invites him for a meal, he, the guest, will decline, even if he is very hungry, since in his eyes it is humiliating to receive a gift from his friend. Yet when his friend sufficiently implores him, until it is clear that by eating he would do a big favor to his friend, he consents to eat, as he no longer feels that he is giving a gift and that his friend is the receiver. On the contrary, he, the guest, is the giver, who is doing his friend a favor by receiving this good from him. Thus you find that although hunger and appetite are vessels of reception designated to eating, and that person had sufficient hunger and appetite to receive his friend's meal, he still could not taste a thing due to the shame. Yet, as his friend implored him, and he rejected him, new vessels for eating began to form within him. Since the power of his friend's pleading and the power of his own rejections, as they finally accumulate into a sufficient amount that turns the measure of reception into a measure of bestowal. In the end, he can see that by eating, he will be doing a big favor and bring great contentment to his friend by eating. In that state, new vessels of reception to receive his friend's meal were made within him. Now it is considered that the power of his rejection has become the essential vessel in which to receive the meal, and not the hunger and appetite, although they are actually the usual vessel of reception. So in this allegory, it might be a little far from us, since he has written it like about 70 or 100 years ago. Basically, he's trying to say, when we go to a friend's house as a guest, sometimes receiving things may be a bit putting a bit of pressure on us. This is also sometimes we have a habit of taking a bottle of wine or something else when we go to a friend's house for dinner, right? Because we don't want to go and receive everything. We want to go with something in our hand to kind of compensate that reception, okay? Because if we just go empty-handed and we're going there and eating everything, we're just going to feel, like we're going to feel bad about it, right, Anthony?
Definitely.
Okay, there we go. There we go. So if you ever go around to Anthony's house, you're going to have a crate of beer, right?
It works out well for me.
Works out well. Okay, great. So that's actually how we can kind of resonate with this allegory in that way. So we're going to a friend's house for dinner, and we know they're preparing a really good meal for us. And we just don't want to go empty-handed, so we buy something like a bottle of wine, some flowers, or some candy, or whatever, to kind of compensate. And so that we don't really feel bad in receiving. And this is what we need to, similarly do with the Creator as well, that He wants to give us something, and we just don't want to blindly take it and enjoy it, and we don't want to be childish about it. We don't want it to be like a child that comes, sometimes kids come and they just grab things that are in your hand because it's new to them. They want to see it, and they're not really conscious about what they're doing. They don't, and we don't get upset with them. And we say, yeah, they're kids, they're going to grab it, break it, whatever. So we don't get upset with them. So imagine a person now beginning to have a desire to grow up and have a proper relationship with the Creator, and doesn't want to receive in a childish way. He wants to set things right in such a way that as the Creator gives, He only wants to give back, and he needs to match that bestowal with His own bestowal. Even if He's a vessel of reception, He needs to receive not for Himself, but in order to bring contentment to the Creator. And now a new phase through this understanding can begin. So this restriction and the screen on top of the desire is a very important thing, because it allows the created being to come up with new thoughts, new discernments about himself, about the Creator, about what to do, how to do, begins to think, just like we would be thinking about what to get to a friend's, what to buy a friend if we're going over there for dinner, right? We want to buy, we want to buy something that they like, right? So we don't want to just turn up with a bottle of beer. They're doing something great, so we want to make sure we get a good bottle of wine, and with maybe some flowers as well, even, just to make sure we, everything is kind of like.
Cabernet Sauvignon.
Exactly. So
2014 or 2011.
Okay, there you go. Anthony's the expert on that. And so with some flowers and some wine, so we don't feel bad about that reception, and we also feel equal in terms when we sit on the table with the host. Otherwise, we wouldn't get any pleasure from the meal if we're, feeling like we just went in there, barged in there, started eating like a wild animal. Okay, and that's what he's trying to really convey to us in this lesson. Now, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, as we study the 4 phases of direct light, there are a few things we need to get our heads around. Now, in reality, there is plus and minus. There is a man and a woman. Just like a plus and a minus, a man and a woman, a night and day. Reality, as we learned previously, is discerned from 2 opposite ends, which we need to reconcile. So same here, the Creator is the bestowing force. This is why the Creator is always known as the male. Okay, so sometimes the Creator is a he, okay, because this is how they describe it. This has nothing to do with gender, so don't get all flamed up. In fact, the Creator is bestowal, which is considered male, and the desire to receive is the one that needs filling. Okay, so the desire to receive, and that's creation, and this is known as female. So this is known as minus because it has a need. It wants to be fulfilled. This is why we run around the planet. We want to be happy and fulfilled. We have a lack. We're in a minus. That's how we feel. So the desire to receive is known as a minus, and the Creator has more as to give, as He has what to give, is known as a plus. And in reality, That's how it is. So when the Kabbalists are describing to us the Creator, sometimes they talk as if he's male. That's where it comes from. Okay? But it has nothing to do with our gender. In reality, we have everything as, male and female here as well, just like in species. In every species there are as well, simply because the Creator wants to show us through creation what this whole system is all about. Okay? Because we can also discover creation from the laws of nature. And in fact, the wisdom of Kabbalah is the study of all the laws of nature, the whole of creation and us in it. So we have to know who we are, what we are, understand what we are, and we have to understand the laws of nature, the general laws of nature and human nature. And we have to start working from these laws of nature to reconcile our differences. So we have to get our heads around this, but you should know we're only talking about traits. We're only talking about the action of doing something. So when you're in a reception mode, you're a female. If you're in a bestowing mode, then you're a male. So this could happen to a man or a woman. Okay, it's not a matter of gender. So let's say you're a woman. Okay, if you're right now in your desire to receive, you're a woman. But if you had a screen and you were bestowing, then you would be actually a man in that state, in spirituality. Okay, once again, nothing to do with our bodies. We learned in our previous semester lessons that our body has nothing to do with spirituality. This body is not related to spirituality. This body is related to this world, and this world is not spiritual. This world is 100% corporeal. And on top of this corporeality, we're going to build spirituality, and then we'll be able to discover everything that's acting behind reality. Then we'll be able to define everything as male, female, how the desire to receive is interacting with the desire to bestow, or the attribute of bestowal, let's say. Okay, so it's very important to get our heads around that. So the bestowal, the Creator, the light also, okay, are known as male, and the desire to receive is known as a female. Okay, how's that? And in nature, just like everything complements each other, the plus and the minus, in reality we also need to now complement our desire to receive with the attribute of bestowal. This is the whole of spirituality, how these two qualities work separately, and now we have to bring them together. We have to reconcile them, and that reconciliation is this masach here, reconciliation, meaning that I will be able to use my desire to receive in order to bestow. This is why the intention is the only thing that changes in reality. How I change my intention changes the whole of reality. It's a very, very important thing to know. Okay, so just like we have a lot of male and female in biology and electricity and all kinds of laws of nature, because it stems from spirituality, and that's what it's all about. All right, and also we can also say that, as we learned in the previous lesson, the 10 Sefirot, right? Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, Zerampin and Malchut. Okay, Zerampin and Malchut, actually, this is the male and the female, and their interaction together is actually building spirituality on top. Okay, so as we learn the wisdom of Kabbalah further, we'll know that Zerampin and Malchut, it's the interaction between these two forces. They're forces, right? In spirituality, we don't have genders. They're forces acting in nature. So as we bring these forces of nature together in the correct way, it's like bringing bestowal and reception together in a correct way. in order to bestow, then what you have is a spiritual reality. And that's how we advance up the rungs of the ladder. All right, any other questions there, Anthony?
So far, that was the last question from Lawrence.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, great. Now, guys, I hope, as we advance in the technical lessons, I hope everything is settling in, okay? Sometimes technical lessons are a bit of a drama. However, though, as you go over them, I think it becomes digestible. It starts to make sense. It's not possible for us to understand everything in one lesson, or to understand a topic in one lesson. It just doesn't work that way. We don't understand life in one year. We don't understand life in many years. In fact, we get old and we say, I don't understand anything about life. Okay, so there you go. Married ones might agree with us, okay, after years of marriage, saying, you know what, forget it, I'm not going to get this. Okay, so
the older we get, the less we know.
Okay, there you go. All right. So this is how life is. So we're going to chew it a little bit. We're going to digest it. We're going to get confused. We're going to clarify it later. We'll study a bit more here, study a bit more there. And then finally, the pieces of the puzzle start to settle down, and we'll get an overall picture. And then as we advance in spirituality, we'll begin to, move with our feelings and bring an understanding to those feelings, which are actually the interaction, once again, between the creator and the desire to receive, between bestowal and the desire to receive, the creator and the created being. And this is how we'll build a new perception of reality, a new created being, actually. So imagine we're living in this body right now. Now imagine to yourself that how would it be like if I had 5 different senses, which is what I drew here. If I had 5 different senses, and through these 5 different senses, I perceive something completely different. And that's what we're trying to build. So we have our corporeal senses, which belong to this world, and the spiritual ones we're going to have to construct to feel spirituality. In other words, we're actually going to give birth to ourselves in another reality, just like a baby is being born in this world. And that's the path of the wisdom of Kabbalah, and we will get to that. Patience is a necessity. Dear friends, we hope you liked this lesson. If you have any questions, please feel free to email to us. There is an email address at the bottom of the YouTube video. You're more than happy to send us your emails. We'll be happy to answer them in the next lesson as well. So until next Tuesday, have a great week. All the best. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.